Okay, yeah, that's a lot of screens. I think it's this one. Okay, so today we are going to look at context modeling. We went over this a little bit in class, but it might just be easy for y'all to follow me. Yeah, okay. The easiest thing to do, remember, is let's create a new one of these so you don't see me a million times. Go to Google Earth or Maps, either one works, and then type in a project area. I like to use satellite because it shows buildings. Let's just use PSW's location because I know where that building is. Okay, so say this is my project site. I'm going to want to capture a good chunk around it so that I can get the general outline of these buildings, the parking lots, tree locations, sidewalks. You can start zooming in and seeing sidewalks, and there are standards to how wide typically a sidewalk is, typically a street that is going, this is a one-way street, but it is divided as it would be a two-way street. So if there's traffic going this way and there's traffic going this way, that's a standard width, and then it shows you can Google what that width is with parallel parking. And I think that Mr. Stillman gave you all street dimensions, so we can start referencing that, and I can show you how to kind of do both at one time. So that's kind of what we're focused on today. Another thing that I like to do when I start to take the screenshot of this is I cannot stand having the layers on, like all of these labels, and I think that's here. Yeah. So this is where you change the look of your map, and then you go to menu. Let's see. You used to be able to do so much here. Edit the map. Pin. Oh no, just kidding. I don't want to do that. Where do you go? Travel time, measure. Yes, you can do measuring in here. Okay. Anyways, let's go back here and let's do a measure. So, hide. Let's say I wanted to measure this street width. So you click and you click, and that tells me roughly how wide that street is. And so then I could click, oops. Oh, there it is. There's the labels. Let's turn those labels off. And you can turn on globe view. I don't enjoy globe view. And globe view typically lets you just kind of zoom around so you can see the heights of the surrounding context. People have kind of put this GIS information into geographic. I think it's geographic. I think it's, yeah, information systems. That's what I thought it was. Okay, you can measure. I can give or take measure about how big that building is, get a width of it, all the things. So let's say I wanted to take a screenshot. You can either screenshot on your screen. I like to control it a little bit more, so I use my snipping tool on my computer. New snipping tool, and I like to grab as much information as I can, and then when I get it into Revit, I will just model the outline of the buildings and the roads that I want to focus on. So And I'll usually come here, save as a screenshot on my phone. I've saved a lot of screenshots. So here's the one that I saved probably recently. All right, and then I will come over here in Revit. I like to place them in a floor plan, so I'll probably put it in, where did I put that? There it is. I put it on just the regular level 1 first floor level floor plan, and I have just started modeling generic buildings around it. So I typically just kind of start with either the streetscape or I'll start with the surrounding buildings. You just typically, I will come over here to architecture, use my generic model in place for that. So that's how I've done most of these buildings, which all currently are at the same height. I've not specified any special height to them. But I will. So let's just start modeling, and y'all can speed through this if you want to. It's really just kind of for your benefit of how I do this. You can notice that I'm not being exact with it. It doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be representative of the surrounding context. So you can see that this building offsets. Oh wait, I think I flipped my own. Yeah. Sometimes when you mirror something, and that's what I'm doing here, you can make a copy or you cannot make a copy of it. And in that case, I did want to make a copy because I'm trying to just copy that same generic in-place model over. This one offsets back here. That looks like a parking lot to me. Probably I'm not going to get too much context back here just because you're not going to be able to see it. If we take any renderings, it's going to be coming down this street. So I'm probably not going to focus too much back here. But see here, I should have captured this corner because I don't know what sits over here. And I don't know how deep that building is. So I'll probably go back later and try to figure out what that might look like. Because if I'm taking a view standing here, looking this way, ideally I would have some context of generic buildings back here so that the background of my building, let me show you. Sometimes it's just easy to show. Okay. So see how if I just did that and I wanted a rendering, say this was like a little parklet where that old building burned down. I want to be able to see some context all the way through. So I want to be able to see the city all the way through, like I'm looking almost in Google Maps, but even if it's just a representative of what that might look like. Let's go to Canvas. Oh, come on. All right, you're going to have to deal with the multiple screen views for a second. Okay. So if I go modules, I think that's where I put it. Let's scroll all the way down here. I did not place that on here. That is my fault. That's right. So while we're on here, I'm just going to go ahead and place this on here. Let's see. All right, let me go ahead and print this to PDF and save it. There we go. Okay. I'm still trying to decide if y'all should do a 30 by 42, and I think I'm going to change that, but I haven't decided yet. Okay, so, oh, I was coming on here to get this address. That's what I was doing. Okay. All right, so say I want to take a view to where it's almost like I'm looking down the street, right? So sometimes you can get over here and see how you can see all this context. It doesn't have to be with the detail of the context, but let's just look at some architectural renderings, exterior context. All right, here's a good one. See how they just have these ghosted buildings. Sometimes we model a lot, but a lot of times it's just like ghosted and representative. Sometimes we'll take some photos of the actual site and Photoshop our building onto that site. That's pretty common, pretty common. But here's an example. So sometimes when we're just visualizing what's going to happen, we might model some of this context back here and then have our project stand out here, where all of this other stuff stays gray and stays white, but only the project that we're doing has the color. And I don't know. I haven't really dove deep into. Here's a good example. All of that context back there is white. Generic modeling here. You're really seeing that building start to jump out at you. All right, so you get the gist of it. Okay, so now that I have that, and so now that we know that we want some generic blocks in here, let's start building. So I'm just going to start copying this form around the site, and then I will go to Google Earth, or Google Maps, sorry, I get them confused. And I will justify the height of them. So if this is 3 stories, I'm just probably going to assume a standard, even though it's not necessarily correct. I might just assume a height here, and you'll notice me do that because I will probably just take this person and scale them up. Sometimes I count bricks to see how tall something is. So I might start at this brick. So I'd be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and go all the way up to the top. And then I can roughly get an idea of how tall that facade is. Facade. Also, I'm going to send you guys some building definitions. Somebody, can't remember who I talked to about this, but there was some consensus that at the convention, some of the diction was a little over our heads a little bit. And that just is because architects really love language and we love words. Most of the time we speak almost poetically. And so I found this really great website that has a PDF that I could download that has vocabulary, and I think it'll be helpful. So facade is basically a face of a building. Usually, I just call it like the skin of the building, so like the outside of the building. Yeah. Anyways, facade. So I might count that brick all the way up to see how tall that portion of the facade is, and then I'm going to look at the proportion of the storefront down here compared to how tall this piece is, and work my way around that. So a lot of it is just guessing, which is completely fine because the context matters, but it doesn't matter in detail as much as our building, which Mr. Steelman did give you very clear instructions about what your building looks like. So your building isn't going to look like what is on Google Maps, and there's nothing wrong with that. I just found a random location that we're going to use. So I'm going to kind of fudge a little bit of this to make it work to my favor. And I'll probably pull this guy back actually a little bit because I don't want it to interrupt my building. I'm going to leave that one alone. We're going to skip that courtyard that's there, which in theory is our building that burnt down. You'll notice that I move pretty quickly in here. So if you need to go back and look at anything, please feel free to jump back and forth. Okay, so now that I have generically some boxes pushed around, I'm probably going to go half screen and half screen with Google Maps. And I'm just going to start down here on this end, which is this end. Oops, nope. Which is this end, and model a shape as tall as this. All right, this is going to be boring. Okay, I got 110, but may or may not be right. I'm going to multiply it by 4 inches because that's just where I'm at. So it's about 36.5 feet tall. So that means this little building here is 36.5 feet tall. Okay, and then this building here is that plus probably a third more, and then there's a little chunk on top, which you can see right there. So 36.5 plus 18. So it's about 55 feet tall. And then I'm going to just copy and paste, pull this back a smidge to where it looks right. I can't tell how tall that is, so I might just, oops. I might just model it until I feel like it looks right. It's a little taller than that. Vaguely looks right. I'll pull it out a little bit more. Okay, but do you see what I mean? You just kind of figure it out as you go. And then this one is the same height as that, so I'm going to just make it 70. And if you really wanted to start forming some of these shapes, you could create void forms. So void extrusion, I'm going to set my work plane. I'm going to pick a plane. I'm going to pick that plane. Start in the middle. Sure. I might just I might just guess. I mean, it's really, there's no magic to it. No magic to it. All right. There. So 12, 10, 5. Oh. Trim, which is TR on my mouse pad. Oh, that's why. That's what I get for drawing in 3D. It's actually really difficult to keep your line straight. There. Okay. So now when I hit the check mark, it cuts my geometry here. So that it looks a little bit like that building. Obviously, it's not perfect, but that's okay. And that building probably, if I had to guess, only has that right there. And I bet it looks somewhat like this. If I were to guess properly. And this is probably down like that. Probably has some sort of frontage here. And I doubt that that shape is extruded all the way down. Let's just look. Yeah, see? So, there we go. And we can join those geometries. See that line? I can fix it by joining them. All right. So now, moving on to this guy. All right. So, he is about, those look to be about the same width. They look a little longer than that. So I think they are. See, I just used my eyeballs, guys. No real magic. Oh, gotta put my little person down there. Sorry if this is boring, but also hope that it's helpful. Right there. There. I'm not going to focus on any trim detailing, and I'm just going to move to the other side. I'm going to come over here and stand and see where my buildings fall. So this one's a little bit taller than this guy. So I'll get him up there. Then I'm going to look. I'm going to make him 65 feet. Sounds good. And this one hits about 3/4 of the way. It doesn't look too off. Looks a little better. Actually, I'm going to make this building the same height as our building. Because I don't want it to be significantly different. There we go. You got some remnants of our old building that burned down right there. I'm going to leave that one at that height, which I think, yeah, is slightly more than this one. So if this one is at 36, this one's probably more 45. We're going to make this building 50. Looks good. Oh, somehow Oh, I think I've only gotten, let's see how much context. No one should have gotten the whole block. But notice how, even though if this is the gap where our building burned down, you see 1, 2, 3, 4. And I only have 1, 2, 3. So that means this guy isn't that big. It's probably there. And that's that building. Okay. And it looks about the same height as that building, so I'm going to make it the same height. And then this guy, oops, here is the same height back here. Here, but up here it's taller. It's probably like a good bit taller. Probably taller than that. Okay, not that tall. Let's pull it down to like 48. Okay, it's good enough. And then this building doesn't go that far. See what I mean? So see, here's that chunk, but then there's another building here that I missed. So I'll just go back and I'll find that spot. Probably mirror that over and just stick it there. We'll take that. That belongs on top of that building. This is lower than this. It's probably the same height as that, so I'm just going to bring it down to 40 feet. And we're starting to get a little building context there. Okay, so the next thing that I'm probably going to do is start modeling this street context. And to do that, that's really where I'm going to also go back to that map. Two things. I personally like modeling a big pad for all of these buildings to sit on, which I will then put the curb on, and I'll show you how to do that. So let's start there. I like to do that out of floor, which I know sounds weird, but you just, remember I said you fake it till you make it. We're going to do floor, architectural. I'm going to create a building pad. Which I might cut into and create sidewalk, and we'll talk about all of that in a second. But for first, like what I like to do is create the building pad. Then I'll edit. I'm going to make it 6 inches because from this street grade to the top of that curb, well, I don't know. I'm looking at it. It actually, ooh, gotta zoom out. Let's get over here. Yeah, so you can see that from street grade to up on the sidewalk, it's about 6 inches. Okay, and that's typical. That's very typical. A 6-inch curb. So that little concrete piece there, that separates that sidewalk from the street level. And the way the street works is that this center line here is the high point. You can see it a little bit more over here. So this is the high point, and your water drains over and hits that curb and then goes to a drain. If I saw any drains over here, I would show you. There might be one. Okay, so actually what they've done, they're draining the water into this greenery space. And then I was wondering if they had any more drainage. Oh, there it is. So when it starts to pool, basically what they're trying to do is soak up all of that dirty water. Let's talk about streets for a second. I'm giving you a lesson on something that I just want you to know because it's interesting in my opinion. I absolutely love urban planning and urban design. So this is just kind of one of the things that you're taught to think about when you're thinking about urban planning is the emissions of cars and stuff that leaks out of cars. So the nasty things that you carry on your tires and all the chemicals that are built into your tires. Your car leaks gas, it leaks oil, it leaks bunches of things. And so if you're not careful, and you don't mitigate that water through something that's going to clean it, it will go straight into the sewer, which then gets put into our water system, which then gets sometimes dumped into rivers and lakes and is absolutely terrible for the ecosystem. So we've started doing some of this urban design where we're pulling that water through. So this is a little bit more naturally beautiful, but it's serving a purpose. So it's pulling that water through, it's cleaning it through these plants. Okay, it's seeping into these plants. The plants clean it, and then by the time it gets over here, one, it's less water in the system in the main, and then second, it's a little bit more cleaner. So they've kind of filtered out a lot of those chemicals before they get to the system. So great cityscape design right here. So I'm glad that we found this project site for you, Mr. Steelman and myself. What was I saying? What were we doing? Oh, building pads. That's right. We're in Revit class. I'm on my soapbox. Okay. So I like to do it in floors. 6 inches is standard between a city street and the sidewalk level, but notice the buildings still sit up off of that sidewalk, probably in a city, probably another 6 inches. It's not ideal. Sometimes we'll create little ramps, so these little inlets, and then they'll ramp up to that door threshold. Threshold meaning the door entry. Yeah. Anyways, okay. So let's do 6 inches because we're just being representative. So I'm going to structure concrete. That looks good. Yep, concrete in place, gray. 6 inches, perfect. I'm gonna hit OK. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. I've had a lot of Coke today. Okay. All right, and now I'm going to draw my boundary. I'm gonna do a rectangle because I'm lazy. And I'm just going to guess. So it looks about right there. And then I'll go back and make it pretty. All right. So the thing with this street is that it's not going to be perfect because I didn't line it up exactly there. So it's going to be slightly, you'll see this is at an angle. So I'm just going to make some assumptions. Let's see. You'll notice that it comes out here and then bends back. And that's probably the same back here. Let me see where we are. Yeah, somehow I've got us all turned around. I really need to turn that back around. Nope. Let's be in the same space. There we go. Okay, so down here it comes out. It radiuses, comes down, becomes parallel parking, and then rounds back. And then over here, we have it coming down. But when I come down here, notice that the streetscape looks different. They've created these little inlets. So I'd really like to start modeling what the inlets are. And I am just going to reference them literally by estimating how big they are from these people. So let's see. A standard sidewalk is probably about 3 feet wide, which would hold one person. 5 feet wide would hold 2 people. So this sidewalk is probably 8 to 10 feet. I can measure it in my handy dandy program here. Somehow I keep getting turned around. There we go. It's probably because I'm not paying attention to where north is. Okay. Ooh. So notice that this sidewalk is tighter than this sidewalk, and this sidewalk is actually more representative of this size. More measure, get a measure from there to there. All right, so yeah, I was right. It's probably about 10 feet. So I'm going to make that 10 feet. I'm just going to click it. I'm going to drag my dimension line to that where it snaps. I'm going to make it 10 feet off of this building face. And I'll probably do the same out here if I can come down here and see that they're the same size. Oh, that is bigger. Notice here where it's 10 feet. And then we come over here, much wider sidewalk, much wider sidewalk. That's probably a 20-foot sidewalk. So I am going to tell it, where's my dimension? All right, I'm going to click and drag and say 20 feet. Look at that, almost dead on. Okay, and then I'm going to go look at Mr. Steelman's thing he made for you guys. Oh, right. I was dropping this in here and putting it on modules. Listen, I can multitask, I promise. I'll do that later. All right. So, second year studio. He has it under files, I think. Project requirements. Blah, blah, blah. Construction of the building, location of the building. The street itself is 36 feet wide, consisting of two 11-foot lanes with 7-foot parallel parking. So I'm just going to look at how he says it, and then I'm going to copy this over. 7 feet. I'm going to do some math. So 7 plus 11. Okay. So 36, yeah. So I'm going to copy this line over 36 feet, and that's where my next sidewalk is going to start. Okay? Mr. Steelman already gave us that information. And is it right to Savannah's location? No, maybe not, but we're going to pretend like it is. And honestly, it looks pretty dang close. So you'll have a 7-foot, here, I'll show you the line. 7 feet here. That's your parallel parking, and 7 feet on this side of parallel parking, and then you have a double lane where people drive. So we'll do those in the asphalt later. So what I like to do is really start representing how this curve is, but notice that this actually comes out probably to the 7 feet. Because it's showing this little inlet for the drainage, and I want to represent that in my model here. So I will offset OF and make sure that my offset reads 7 feet, and trim to get those to match up. That looks a little bit bigger than a car length, which car lengths are so typically like a parking spot for a car, if you were to do just regular typical parking, is, I think it's like 9 by 18, unless it's gotten bigger. But I'm going to assume that's 20 feet just because, I mean, I'm making it up anyways. So we're going to say it's 20 feet. And I'll trim that corner and trim that corner. And that looks pretty good. So I will copy CO. I use my hotkeys quite often. So I'm trimming TR to get the corners, and I'm copying CO a lot. Mirror is MM. Move is MV. So I'm not coming up here and using these just because I'm so familiar with how this all works. But I do want to represent this radius that's coming all the way across. So I'll probably come up here, do the fillet arc. This will show you an example. You just click 2 lines. Here we go. And then it creates that fillet for you, that arc area. So we'll use that one, and I'll come here and click this. And it looks good. 13. I'll probably change it to 15. Because it does look like a big arc. 15. And then it arcs again at the edge here. So I'm going to fill it. It's probably like 3. I don't know. That looks right. That looks right. Okay. There we go. But you will save your project. Let's save your project so that I don't forget. Okay, so now we're starting to get something that looks good. I'm probably just gonna model this end for you because I feel like you could intuitively figure out the rest if we get this end worked out. Okay. And this is showing up with this pattern on it just because in the properties here, like we talked about, I've told it that I want concrete pattern to show up, but if I wanted horizontal lines to show up, I think this actually has to do with, yeah, this. I have concrete associated as its material, but you can create sidewalk. I don't really care to do it right now, so you can also keep this whatever, as long as all these materials are separate from each other, they can change in what is it called? Inkscape. Yeah. I might actually create this to be brick because it looks like that brick pattern is consistent. Except right there. So just an example. Okay, so now I'm going to create a new one. I'm going to do this parking space. I'm this streetscape. So I'll just probably create similar because that is my shortcut. If it's a shortcut, it might not be. I don't know. And then I'm going to change the type. I'm going to create my own type, and I'm going to say asphalt. Yeah. Okay. So this is going to have to change to asphalt pavement. Load it up. And why didn't it load up? Ooh, dark gray. There we go. Okay. Best thing about pavement that I like to do is I just make a big square. Because it doesn't matter where it's at, because I'm going to place it underneath that building pad, underneath this guy, so that we really start getting some depth. It's going to tell me that they overlap, but joke's on it. I'm not going to make it overlap. We want that to be a negative. So notice how it's easily starting to kind of give us some understanding of what's happening. Another thing that I'm going to start observing is the streetscape material change. So you notice that this crosswalk, it changes here. So I will come here and edit my boundary, draw. I'm going to pick lines. It's pretty simple. It looks like that happens at this curve. So I'm going to click that curve, click this curve, and simply start drawing some representations of what's happening. That looks like a 5 foot. That could be 10 feet. That's 10 feet. 10-foot path, but it doesn't go that far. So I'm going to offset it 10 feet and then trim my lines. And that's going to create a hole. Remember when we did floors, when you create a closed shape in the middle of your floor, it will create a hole. I'm going to do the same thing for the parking because notice it has a material change again. So pick lines. I'm going to come over here. I'm probably going to pick that line and pick that line just because I can trim to start closing these boundaries, which is TR. Love trimming. It's one of my favorite tools. I like to copy a lot as well. Notice though that goes all the way to that concrete. So I'm going to be representative of that here. There we go. There we go. There. I haven't paid attention much to what's happening back there, but I'm sure it's very similar. I do feel like this comes in much more if I'm looking at this. It's almost like at this parking or this sidewalk crosswalk here, it comes out 20 feet. So I might change what I've done just because I want it to look correct. So remember, click, drag to the left only selects the things that it is in the box. Click, drag to the right selects everything that I touch. So I use this a lot. MV to move, and I'm just going to move it to where it attaches. It shows me that where I am. It'll highlight the two lines and then the X shows us where they intersect. So it's just telling me where that 20-foot is located off of this crosswalk. And then I might move this as well. There we go. So now we have, see there's the holes that we created. But we have the parking. And let's see if I can do consistent colors so you really start seeing, those are all concrete, I bet. What? Oh, right. What I'm doing is I was selecting them to change the material of them, but because I have this void in here, it didn't tell me that I could change their material. So if I deselect the void, all of a sudden I have more options because all of these things that are selected are the same type. And I'll show you, there's a filter. So say I selected this whole thing and I didn't know what was selected that wouldn't allow me, I didn't know what I was selecting that wasn't all the same type. I can go to this filter and it will tell me. So it says your categories are generic models and then there's a generic model void. And so I want to uncheck the void and I want all my generic models so I can change all the materials to my generic model at one time. So I said, okay. And then I come over here and then I can do more things because they're all the same type. Pretty standard, the same way with walls. You can't have walls and floors and then change all of their material at one time. I'm going to change this to generic. I'm going to create a new, come on, Nikki. Teach good habits. Creating a new material for it. And I'm going to call it the generic context buildings. I don't know. And I'm going to change their appearance to white because I like white. Okay. Well, that's what I get. Because I have it under consistent colors, so therefore it gives me this as a consistent color. Okay, there. All right, so now you can see that all of these guys are separate materials, so that means I can change this. Not only are these separate materials, they're separate types. So I can change the color of this asphalt and it won't change the color of the building pad. I can change the color of the building pad and make it brick. Let's see, brick, common, sure. All right. And then, bam, completely separate to the other type. That's a type. Okay. I'm going to change it back because it's confusing. Okay. Also, just for example, if this building was, you notice that I clicked brick common, which is just brick common is just the common lay, the common orientation and run of brick. So if I make this material on this building and this material here that I've selected, both the same material that are here, if they are both this, that means if I change this, then they both change. And I hope that that makes sense. So for example, if I had this guy and I said, I want it to be the same brick, and I hit OK, and I come here and I'm like, wait, I want those to read separately. And I mistakenly go and just edit that material. Say I make it looks better anyways. I make it that color. Okay, well now they both changed because they're the same exact material. Now if I came here and I created a copy, and then I changed this material. I don't remember what color that was. Let's do like a light gray. It shouldn't. Oh, that's right. I say that. So the reason why they stayed the same is because I didn't change it here. So I have to come here and make sure I change it to the brown, and now they will be different. I hope that makes sense. Okay. So I want to keep rolling. Keep rolling, Nikki, keep rolling. We will create the crosswalk. So I'll probably just copy, paste in the same place. And that's fine because what I'm going to do is I'm actually cheating the system. I'm going to edit this boundary. I'm going to delete this outer box that's making the holes here. And now that I've deleted the outer box, these guys are going to create the solid, instead of creating a void, they're going to create the solid piece. So when I hit the check mark, those are now the solid pieces, and I can make them, the same material. Man, I'm selecting the wrong one. There, I can make those the same material. So just a quick shortcut. And if I wanted to even get into the detail of creating that concrete, I can offset this. I don't know, that looks like 6 inches or so. I can make it 6 inches because I'm making this up. Let's not copy it though. I want to not copy. So we'll just offset like this. All right. Continue. I don't know. Oh, there it is. When it doesn't give you that error, it just means that there is a rogue line. So notice how that end is over here and this end is right here. They have to be a closed shape. Hit OK. Floors overlap. Yes, I know. And now I'm going to create a similar guy. Use my pick lines and just go and pick lines. honestly, the more you get the hang of this, the easier this will be. And that's kind of why I think it's important for you all to start modeling some of these details, because the more you model, the more you understand Revit, and the quicker you are, the more efficient you are. Okay, there's that. And this one, I'm pretty much just gonna create a little triangle. A triangle, oh my gosh. It's been a long weekend, okay? I had convention for 2 whole days. I was in charge of a bunch of stuff on Thursday, and so Thursday was quite rough. But I'm glad y'all got to be there, and I hope that you all had a good time and you learned something. If anything, just some new words works for me. But it was kind of a lot for me. I'm going to make that a 4-inch slab. It was kind of a lot for me at the time, so I haven't really had a break. But I wanted to get this out to you guys. Okay. Looks good. Looks good. I'm feeling good about it. So, the way I do these guys, there's obviously always a lot of ways, but I just kind of like to show representation with buildings, like the wall sweeps. So I create my own, not wall sweeps, I'm sorry, that was wrong. Slab edge. So I like to create my own slab edge. I don't know what these look like, but I will just kind of do this as a demonstration. So here, we'll do it here. I want to flip it so you can see it. So it's just like sweeping on the wall, like a wall sweep. And you can honestly you see how I can just start clicking the edges and creating this sweep. And that's kind of it. You can create your own profile. I can send this -6 inches. Oh, that went up. Let's say 5. And it starts giving us kind of the slab edge. So that's pretty much it. And then you really just start building everything. So I would focus on, even creating the little pocket for this greenery, because when you get into Inkscape, you want to be able to place a light fixture like this. You really want to start building this street up so that when I come here and I take a photo looking down this street, right, like at my building, man, that really starts to feel good. Let's do 8 inches because that's looking weird. I would create my own custom profile, which we've done in Revit. So I hope that you guys remember how to do that. But really start building this up. And then in Inkscape, we can start adding materials and cars and making it feel good. But yeah, I hope this was helpful for you. And I hope this helps y'all get a little further on Monday. All right, that's it. Cool. See you Monday.